Yo, what's poppin' YouTube? It's your brother, the MOPOWERZ, and we are back again, this time at 1 a.m. on a Wednesday morning right before Thanksgiving. So we're on the eve of Thanksgiving with more informative news for you all in regarding the world's 16 crucified saviors. That's right, we are BUSY on this thing. And if you all have been keeping up, we had left off in chapter 32 after reading the 346 comparisons and parallelism to Krishna and Christ. Okay, now after the 346, and we are on page 153 of the World's 16 Crucified Savior by Percy Graves. Chapter 32, page 153, after the 346. Okay. The author has in his possession historical quotations to prove that the truth of each one of these above parallels. He has all the historical facts on which they were constructed, found in and drawn from the sacred books of the Hindu religion and the works of the Christian writers' description of their religion. But they will swell the present volume to unwieldy dimensions and far beyond its prosper and prescribed limits to present them here. They are therefore reserved for the second volume and may be published in pamphlet form also. In proof of the correctness of the foregoing comparative analogies, we will now summon the testimony of various authors setting forth the historical character of the Hindu god Krishna and the essential nature of his religion, so far as it approximates in the doctrines and moral teachings of the Christian religion. We will first hear from Colonel Wiseman, for 10 years a Christian missionary in India. There is one Indian Hindu legend of considerable importance, says this writer. This is the story of Krishna, the Indian Apollo. In native legends, he is represented as an avatar or incarnation of the destiny. At his birth, choirs of devatas, meaning angels, sung hymns and praise while shepherds surrounded his cradle. It was necessary to conceal his birth from the tyrant ruler, Cancer, to whom it had been foretold that the infant Savior should destroy him. The child escaped with his parents beyond the coast of Lomuna. For a time he lived in obscurity and then commenced a public life distinguished for prowess and benefits. He washed the feet of the Brahmins and preached the most excellent doctrines. But at length the power of his enemies prevailed. Before dying, he foretold the miseries which would take place in the Kali Yuga, or wicked age, aka dark age, of the world. Krishna, says another writer, taught his followers that they alone were the true believers of the saving faith, throwing down the barriers of caste and elevating the dogmas of their faith above the sacerdotal, sacerdotal class, sacerdotal class. He admitted everyone who felt an inward desire to the ministry, to the preaching of their religion. A system thus associating itself with the habits, feelings, and personal advantages of its disciple could not fail to make rapid progress. Buddhism inculcates benevolence, tenderness, forgiveness of injuries, and love of enemies, and forbids sensuality, love of pleasure, and attachment to worldly objects. At the moment of his conception, a god left heaven to enter the womb of his mother, a virgin lady, immediately after his birth, and his mother was Mia, Maia, okay? Immediately after his birth, he was recognized as a divine personage, and it was predicted that he would surpass all previous divine incarnations in holiness. Everyone adored him, saluting him as the God of gods. When 20 years of age, he went into a desert and lived there in the utterest retirement, poverty, simplicity, and virtue, spending his whole time in religion contemplation. He was tempted in various ways, but his self-denial resisted all the seductive approaches of sin. He declared, "Religion is my essence." He experienced a lively opposition from the priests attached to the ancient creed, as Christianity subsequently did. Okay, but he triumphed over all his enemies after holding a discussion with them, as Christ did with the doctors in the temple. He revised the existing code of morals and social law. He reduced the main principles of morality to four: mercy, aversion to cruelty, unbounded sympathy for all animated beings, and the strict adherence to the moral law. He also gave a decalogue of commandments: 1. Not to kill; 2. Not to steal; 3. To be chaste; and 4. Not to testify falsely; 5. Not to lie; 6. Not to swear; 7. To avoid all impure words; 8. To be disinterested; 9. Not to take revenge; and 10. Not to be superstitious. This code of morals were firmly established in the hearts of its followers. It was prophesied in olden times that a person would arise and redeem Hindustan from the yoke of bondage. At midnight, when the birth of Krishna was taking place, the clouds emitted low music and poured down a rain of flowers. The celestial child was greeted with hymns by attending spirits. The room was illuminated by his light, and the consciousness of his father and mother emitted rays of glory, and they bowed in worship. The people believed he was a god. They eagerly caught the words which fell from his lips, which taught his divine mission, and they called him the Holy One, and finally the living God. He performed miracles, miraculous cures. At his birth, a marvelous light illumined the earth. His followers baptized and performed miraculous cures, and he did, as a child, attracted attention by his miracles. I'm going to read that over. His followers baptized and performed miraculous cures, and he, when a child, attracted attention by his miracles. While attending the herds with his foster father, a great serpent poisoned the river, which caused the death of cows and shepherd boys when they drank of it, whom Krishna restored to life by a look of divine power. His life was devoted to mercy and charity. He left paradise from pure compassion to die for suffering sinners. He sought to lead men to better paths and lives of virtue and rectitude. He suffered to atone for the sins of the world, and the sinner, through faith in him, can be saved. Christ and Krishna both taught the equality of man. Prayers addressed to Krishna were after his fashion: O thou Supreme One, thy essence is inscrutable. Thou art in all. The understanding of man cannot reach thy almighty power. I, who knowing nothing, fly to thee for protection. Show mercy unto me, and enable me to see and know thee. Krishna replies, have faith in me. No one who worships me can perish. Address thyself to me as the only me, address thyself to me as the only asylum. Yeah, address me as the only asylum. I will deliver thee from sin. I am animated with equal benevolence toward all beings. I know neither hatred nor partiality. Those who adore me devoutly are in me, and I in them. Christ within you, the hope of glory. If we consider the Buddhism proclaimed the equality of all men and women in the sight of God, that is, denounce the impious pretensions of the most mischievous priesthood the world ever saw, and that it inculcated a pure system of practical morality, we must admit that the innovation was advantageous as it was extensively spread and adopted. To Krishna, the Hindus were indebted for a code of pure and practical morality, which inculcated charity and chastity, performance of good works, abstinence from evil, and general kindness to all living things. Buddhism never confounds right or wrong and never excuses sins. He, Krishna, honored humanity by his virtues. It is probable that every incident in his life is founded in fact, which, if separated from surrounding fables, would afford a history that would scarce have any equal in the importance of the lessons it would teach. He, Krishna, undertakes and counsels a constant struggle against the body. In his eyes, the body is the enemy of man's soul. As Paul taught when he spoke of our vile bodies, he aims to subdue the body and burning passions which consume it. He requires humility, disregard of worldly wealth, patience and resignation in adversity, love to enemies, religious tolerance, horror at falsehood, avoidance of frivolous conversation, considering and esteem for women, sanctity of the marriage relation, non-resistance to evil, confession of sins, and conversation. Buddhism has been called the Christianity of the East. The doctrine and the practical purity of the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita for the Hindus, here a strong resemblance of those of the Holy Scriptures. It has scarcely a precept or principle that is not found in the Christian Bible. And were the people to live up to its principles of peace and love, oppression and injury would be known no more within their borders. It has no mythology of obscene and ferocious deities, no singularity or impure observatives, no self-inflicting tortures, no tyrannizing priesthood, no confounding of right and wrong by making certain iniquities laudable in worship. It, in its moral code, its description of the purity and peace of the first ages and the shortening of man's life by sin, it seems to follow genuine traditions. In almost every respect, it seems to be the best religion ever invented by man. If the morality of Buddhism is examined, its exhortations to guard the will, to curb thoughts, to exercise kindness towards others, to abstain from right and wrong is profound, a very high standard of practice. But let me ask you something. See all of this that's going on when you have to deny yourself all of that which you were composed of or is coded in your DNA to have by God. They're telling you not to feel that way. If the Creator, according to religious people, say that you are in the image of God and you have his likeness, that means he feels. He has feelings. He has feelings. He has opportunities to do right and to do wrong. He has opportunities to do right and to do wrong. Can God lie? Well, they've lied on God. If God can't lie, they've lied on God even in their own books, okay? Even in their own books, they have told lies to you. The thing is, have you been able to catch them? Many have not been able to catch them. And this is why they are still in the situation that they are in. And it's sad that we, or shall I say, you, but I have to include myself with the we because they see us as one. They don't see us as individuals, but I see myself as an individual working to teach you all something that you did not know and that will actually give you a different perspective on religion and fact about it without using the dictionary. Well, I can't say that. But can you all tell me what religion means? The etymology of the word? Make that a notation on your homework assignment. What is religion? What is the etymology of the word? Where did it come from? What is the root word? I give you my definition at the end of the book. Okay. Buddhism, it seeks the highest triumphs of humanity in the exercise of devotion, self-contemplation, and self-denial. And the doctrines of Buddhism are not alone in the beauty of their sentiments and the excellence of much of their morality. It is not permitted to you to return evil for evil, is one of the sentiments of Socrates. Buddhism, well, Socrates, here we go with that again. And if you study Socrates, which we'll get to in another book, it will give you a closer insight to Socrates and what he did and why he was jailed. We'll get into that book, okay? Buddhism insists on the necessity of taking the intellectual faculties for guides and philosophical researches. It sought to wean mankind from the pleasures and vanities of life by pointing to the transitories of all human enjoyment. The principal characteristics of Buddhism are the doctrines of mildness and the universal brotherhood of man. Life is a state of probation and misery according to Buddhism. The Brahmins found fault with him, meaning Krishna, for receiving as disciples the outcasts of Hindu society, as the Jews did Christ for fellowshipping publicans and sinners. But he, Krishna, replied, "My law is a law of mercy to all." Buddhism attracted and furnished consolation for the poor and unfortunate. Buddhism is a rationalistic and reform system as compared with Brahmanism. Landrisi expresses his high admiration of the heroism with which the Buddhist missionaries before Christ crossed streams and seas, which had arrested armies and traversed deserts and mountains upon which no carvings dared to venture, and braved dangers and surmounted obstacles which had defied the omnipotence. You get omnipotence, omnipotent. Yeah, sometimes it's a tongue twister, okay? Omnipotence of the emperors. I'm going to say that sentence over again, okay? It says here, I guess I have to read the whole paragraph over. Buddhism is a rationalistic and a reform system as compared with Brahmanism. Landris expresses his high admiration of the heroism in which the Buddhist missionaries before Christ crossed streams and seas which had arrested armies and traversed deserts and mountains upon which no caravans dared to venture, and braved dangers and surmounted obstacles which had defied the omnipotence of the emperors. If we addressed a Mogul or Tibetan this question, who is Krishna? The reply was instantly the savior of men. Krishna, the incarnate deity of the Sanskrit romance, continues to this hour the darling god of the women of India. Krishna was the person of Vishnu, God himself in human form. Respectable natives told me that some of the missionaries had told him that they were even now almost Christians. All that converting the Hindus to Christianity does for them is to change the object of their worship from Krishna to Christ. Brahmanism or Buddhism in some of its form is said to constitute the religion of considerably more than half of the human race. It teaches the existence of one supreme, eternal, and uncreated God called Brahma, who created the world through Krishna, the second member of the Trinity. Paul says God created the world through Jesus Christ, the second member of the Christian Trinity. How striking is the resemblance! The doctrine of the incarnation, the descent of the deity upon earth, and its manifestations in the human form for the redemption of mankind seems to have existed in the shape of prophecy or fact in all ages of the world. Hinduism teaches 9 of these incarnations. Furthermore, it teaches the doctrine of the Trinity, the fall and the redemption of man, and a state of future towards rewards and punishments in a future life. This religion in chief of Asia is traceable to remote ages. The doctrine of the Trinity is represented in Elephantine Cavern and taught in the Mahabharat, 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 okay, which goes back for its origin nearly 2,000 years before Christ. In the year 3600, Krishna descended to the earth for the purpose of defeating the evil mechanisms of Shivan, the devil, Chivan, as Christ came to destroy the devil and his works. After a fierce combat with the devil or serpent, he defeated him by crushing his head, he receiving during the contest a wound in the heel. It, the serpent, shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. That's also in the book of Genesis. He died, in the book of Genesis, and you can find what happened in the book of Revelation. Okay. He died at last between two thieves. He led a pure and holy life and was a meek, tender, and benevolent being, and enjoyed charity, hospitality, and mercy, and forbade lying, prevarication, hypocrisy, and overreaching in dealing and pilfering, and theft and violence toward any being. The birthplace of the Hindu hero Krishna is called Mathura, which is easily changed by the correct translation, becomes Muturea, Maturea, Muteria versus Mathura, okay? The place where Christ is said to have stopped between Nazareth and Egypt. Amazing. I know somebody out there watching right now. In fact, about it, it's like one of those infomercial preachers that late at night and they say something that is related to you just at that point, and you feel like that message is for me. Well, guess what? If you're up this time at night and you're watching this live, this message is for you. So if you're new to the channel or if you just got over here today, get out a pen, get out a paper, and do some research. Do some research. Give yourself maybe an hour a day to learn something new that can benefit you and elevate your conversation, but also your vocabulary. Okay? But getting back to Krishna, okay? The birthplace of Krishna. And once again, how Christ went through that place on his way to where? Egypt. To show his humility, he washed the feet of the Brahmins, as Christ is said to have washed the feet of the Jews. One day a woman came to him and anointed his hair with oil, in return for which he healed her maladies, meaning her illnesses, her imperfections. One of his first miracles was that of a healing of a leper, just like Christ did in the book of Mark. Finally, he was crucified, then descended to Hades, the same as Christ. His soul was not left in hell. He, Krishna, rose from the dead and ascended to Bokantha, meaning heaven. Bokantha, Voicantha. Okay? Now we ask, is it any wonder, in view of the foregoing historical exposition, that Eusebius should exclaim, the religion of Jesus Christ is neither new nor strange? Truly did St. Augustine say, this in our day is the Christian religion, not as having been unknown in former times, but as recently received that name. Here, then, we pause to ask our good Christian reader, where is your original Christianity now? Or what constitutes the revealed religion of Jesus Christ? Or where is the evidence that any new religion was revealed by him or preached by him, seeing we have all his religion, as shown by the foregoing historical citations, including in an old heathen system more than 1,000 years old when Jesus Christ was born. We find it all here in this old Oriental system of Buddhism, every essential particle, and principle of it. We find Christianity all here, its Alpha and Omega, its beginning and its end. We find it here in all its detail, its roots, essence, and entity, all its revealed doctrines, religious ideas, beautiful truth, senseless dogmas, and oriental phantoms, not a doctrine, principle, or precept of the Christian system, but that is here proclaimed to thee world ages before the angels announced the birth of a divine babe in Bethlehem. Okay? Will you then persist in claiming that truth, life, and immortality came by Jesus Christ? I should really hope not. I should really hope that you are not that unintelligent to understand these facts and all that I've given you in the last 22 videos, but not only in the last two videos, but in the last couple of years. And for people who know me personally, it's been decades. Now, here you have, will you persist in claiming that truth, life, and immortality came by Jesus Christ, and that Christ came to preach a new gospel to the world and to set forth a new religion never before heard amongst men, when the historical facts cited in this work demonstrate 100 times over that such a position is palpably erroneous? Will you still persist with all those undeniable facts staring you in the face, proving and reproving with overwhelming demonstrations that the statements is untrue? I don't think you can be that dumb. In declaring that the religion of Jesus Christ is the only true and soul-saving religion, and all other systems are a mere straw, stubble, tradition, and superstition, when no mathematician ever demonstrated a scientific problem more clearly than we have proved in these pages, that all the principal systems of the past, by no means excepting Christianity, are essentially alike in every important particular, all of their cardinal doctrines being the same, differing only in unimportant details. Seeing then that all the systems of religion have been found to be essential alike in spirit and in practice, the all-important question arises here: what is the true causes assignable for the striking resemblance? How is it to be accounted for? Perhaps some of our good Christian readers, unacquainted with history, may cherish the thought that all the Oriental systems brought to notice are but imitations of Christianity, that they were reconstructed out of materials obtained from that source, that Christianity is the present and they the offspring. But at last, for their long cherished idol, those entertain such forlorn hopes are now sowing to the wind and are doomed to disappointment, with the exception of the Muslims, the Mohammedanism. Alone, Christianity is the youngest system in the whole catalog. I'll have to change that and update that to Islam. Okay? I'm just saying. It's the newest one. It's the newest spinoff of all of these other religions. And as I stated, Islam, Christianity was given to you by the Jews. And the Jews, according to history, not a religious book, but a history, got their religion doctrine from pagan religions. Paganism. Do not follow the ways of the heathen, for the ways of the heathen are vain. Book of Jeremiah. Okay? Um, Seeing then that all systems of religion have been found to be essentially alike in spirit and in practice, all the important questions arising here. What is the true cause assignable for the striking resemblance? How is it accounted for? Perhaps some of our good Christian readers, unacquainted with history, may cherish the thought that all the Oriental systems brought here are the spin-offs of Christianity. But once again, we know that they're not. The historical facts to prove this statement are voluminous, but as it needs no proof to those who have read religious history, but little space will be occupied with citations for this purpose. With respect to the antiquity of the principal Oriental system, we need only to quote the testimony of Sir William Jones, a devout Christian writer who spent years in India and whose testimony will be accepted by any person acquainted with his history. He makes the emphatic declaration, the name of Krishna and the general outline of his history were long anterior to the birth of our Savior and probably to the time of Homer, which was 900 BC. Yeah, that's the time of Homer. Do your research on that, okay? We know for certainly, no guessing about it, we know very certainly, and being a scholar, a traveler, and a sojourner among the Hindus and well versed in their history, no person ever had a better opportunity to know than he. We will hear his renowned author further. In the Sanskrit dictionary, compiled more than 2,000 years ago, we have the whole history of the incarnate deity, Krishna, born of a virgin and miraculously escaping in his infancy from the reigning tyrant of his country, Cancer. Cancer was like King Herod in the Bible, okay? He passed a life of the most extraordinary and incomprehensible devotion. His birth was concealed from the tyrant Cancer, to whom it had been predicted that one born at that time and in that family would destroy him, destroy his power. The writer also states that the first Christian missionaries who entered India were astonished to find that a religion so near to their own and could only account for it by supposing that the devil, foreseeing the advent of Christ, originated a system of religion in advance of his, and just like it, stating in other words, he got out of the second edition of the gospel plan of salvation before the first edition was published or had an existence. Rather a smart trick this, thus to outwit God Almighty. Unbelievable, you all. With respect to the vast antiquity of the Hindu Oriental religion, which indicate it as being not only the source from which the materials of the Christian religion were drawn, but as the parent of all leading systems, with their 3,000 subordinate branches which existed at a much earlier period than Christianity, we need only point to the deep chiseled sculptures and imperishable monuments stamped on their time-honored temples, tombs, altars, bases, columns, pagodas, ruined flowers, etc., which with contemporary inscriptions warn us in antedating the religion of the Himalayas, yeah, Himalayas, the Hindus, far beyond the authentic records of any other religion that has floated down to us on the stream of time. The numerous images of their crucified gods, Krishna and Saki, emblazoned on their old rock temples in various parts of the country, some of which are constructed of clay. Now, the very hardest pieces of rock, with their attendant inscriptions in a language so very ancient as to be lost to the memory of man, vie with the Sanskrit in age, the oldest deciphered language in the world. Yeah, deciphered. They haven't deciphered the hieroglyphics yet. Once again, it says deciphered. Okay. Now you must remember that the temples, which were the schools in Kemet, which is now Egypt, existed long before Hinduism. And the key word here in this system says it is the oldest deciphered language in the world. Like I said, they haven't deciphered the hieroglyphics yet, which is much older than Hinduism. I'm just saying. All these and 100 corroboratory historical facts fix on India as being the birthplace of the mother of all religions now existing or that ever had an existence, while the great workshop in which they were subsequently remodeled was in Alexandria in Egypt. Whose theological schools furnished the model for nearly every system now found notice on the page of history. Something I just said, wasn't it? It was something I just said. Okay. Christianity, of course, included so much of the unrivaled antiquity of the Hindu religion. Now, the more important query arises: what relationship does ancient heathen or Hindu Buddhism bear to Christianity? What is the evidence that the latter is the outgrowth of the other or former? As an answer to this question, the reader would please note the following facts of history. Number one, Alexandria, the home of the world's great conqueror, the Greek, was at the one period of time the great focal center for religious speculation and propagandism, and emporium for religious dogmas throughout the East, and a place of resort for the disciples of nearly every system of religious faith then existing. That sounds just like something I just said. Oh, yeah, Mo does plenty of reading, and I highly advise you to do a lot of reading if you really want to understand what's going on. Some people learn through hearing, some people learn through reading, and etc., etc., etc. I myself like the OJT, read, see for yourself, think for yourself. Okay? Number two, in this capital city, comprising about 500,000 inhabitants, were established a voluminous library, a vast theological schools in which men of every religious order and of every phase of faith met and exchanged religious ideas and borrowed new doctrine with which they remodeled their former systems of faith, anointing amounting in some cases to an entire change of their long established creeds. Now, you know what? They said during the reign of Alexander the Great. You must remember, life existed long before Alexander the Great. In fact, who do you think taught the Greeks the alphabet? I'm just saying. Do your homework, man. We'll get to that book after we finish this one or the book after. But we got plenty books, okay? And we're going to get off into that Socrates, and we're going to get off into this Egypt schools of learning and all of that. Just stick with me. That will be in the next up and coming book that we will be reading. If not, we'll go to the Talmud and read, okay? But we got lots in store for you. So just hang with me, okay? Number three, in these theological schools, the Jewish sect, which afterward became the founders of Christianity, it's just not Mo saying it, okay, were extensively represented. For let it be noted, its first disciples and founders had all been Jews, probably the SNA sect. For a long time, the Christians were but a Jewish sect. History of Christian theology. Alexander had previously to this time, which was about 330 BC, subjected the whole of Western Asia to his dominions, including, of course, the Holy Land, Judea. Mhm. Read the history of Alexander the Greek. And as you're reading that, I want you to go down on this page and look up, well, not on this, yeah, go on this page and look up the historical origins of Christianity. I did a video on that. And then you can go over to the MOSHOW Chicago, and I laid another video out on that as well. So if you haven't done so already, by all means, make sure you go and do that. Okay. And you can also check out the master teacher, Walter Williams. He's a beast. If you want to get your head cracked and learn something at the same time, check out Walter Williams. In a book entitled Historical Origins Before Christianity, and you can look up his videos as well on YouTube, giving out mad science for free. And the only thing he said he wanted was an individual to give him credit for his work. And I can do that because I can't pay the man what the information and that which he has taught and that which I have learned from him is priceless. I can't pay the man, but I have to give him his credit. You should do the same. By this act, a large portion of the Jewish nation were transferred from their own country to Alexandria. And this number was afterward vastly increased by Alexander's successor, Ptolemy Soter. And Ptolemy Soter, who carried off and settled in that Cretan city 100,000 more Jews. Because when Alexander the Greek came into the Black Kemet area, he slaughtered them, killed us, took all of our stuff. Yeah, Alexander the Greek. They call him Alexander the Great because he continued to conquer brown people. He conquered brown people and took all of their stuff. And then his successor, Ptolemy Soter, helped devise the Serapis, that new Jesus thing that you're talking about. Go on this page and look at that video, the historical origins of Christianity that I made. And I did give credit, once again, to the master teacher. And I always give credit to the master teachers. And you should too. Anyway, right? As a resulting part of these repeated calamities, the Lord chosen people were literally broken up. The Lord chosen people. Whom they talking about right now? The Jews. Okay. They lost their law, lost their leader and lawgiver, lost their language, lost the control of their country, the promised land, which they verily believed the Lord had deemed them in fee simple and ratified in the high court of heaven and had declared that they should hold and possess forever. And finally, they partially lost their nationality, being literally dissolved and broken up and were finally almost lost to history. Then 10 tribes disappearing entirely. Anyway, right? Get on with that garbage, okay? Now, in your book, the Bible, okay, seeing that they're talking about the Jews, aka the Hebrews. What's the difference between a Jew and a Hebrew? Nothing. But Jews claimed that they were in bondage, that they were enslaved to the black people. Anyway, right? That's what they say in the book of Exodus. But when you get over to the New Testament, the New Test, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who are the priests of the Jews, say that we have never been in bondage to any man. I'm just saying. There's another contradictory for you in regards to the history of the Jews and them giving you Christianity and Islam and Judaism. Religion is a cult. I don't care what school of thought it is a cult. In the words of General Rossetti, you are not born with a Bible or a Quran or a Torah strapped to your ass. Okay? The Jews had ever manifested a proneness for copying after the religious custom of their heathen neighbors. I'm going to say that again. The Jews had ever manifested a proneness for copying after the religious customs of their heathen neighbors and engrafting their doctrines into their own creeds, as their own Bible story furnishes ample proof. As their Bible furnishes ample proof. In Alexandria, a very superior opportunity was affordable for doing this, excelling in this respect any previous period of their history. The shattered condition of their own religion, with all its conventional creeds, customs, and ceremonies, now suspended and literally prostrated, as above shown, vastly augmented the temptation ever rife with them to make another change in their religion and subject their creed to another installment of new doctrines by which it became Christianity. The liberal character and tolerant spirit of the political and religious institutions of the Kingdom of Alexandria, with its vast and attractive library of 200,000 volumes. Now, those volumes, the Library of Alexandria, is the library that they stole when they conquered the black people of Kemet. When the Greeks came in and did that, we were a peaceful people. When they saw us as they were coming in to invade us, they saw that we were a peaceful people and we had a civilization that was outside their realm of thought. They could not fathom what we had built. That's true history. And the Jews know it too. Miseducation of the Negro and the consequences of being miseducated continuously lies upon you, brown man. I'm just saying, in this age of information, you should not be as stupefied as you are. You got college courses to be a professor right at your fingertips, right on the laptop, while you're paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for an education that's not worth the piece of paper that the ink is printed on. $50,000 to walk across the stage saying that you graduated. I am an alumni of this place. Yeah, but by the time you pay all of the interest fees for your teaching degree or whatever degree you're going to get, that's $100,000. They don't even expect for you to pay it off. They don't expect for you to live that long. But believe me, they're going to get their money. So be careful when you sign that death certificate, because college nowadays, for many young students, is a death certificate, is a prison sentence, is an economical prison sentence. Think about that, okay? The shattered condition of their own religion, with all its conventional creeds, customs, and ceremonies now suspended and literally prostrated, as above shown, vastly augmented the temptation ever rife for them to make another change in their religion and subject that creed to another installment of new doctrines by which it became Christianity. The liberal character and tolerant spirit of the political religious institutions and the kingdom of Alexandria, with its vast and attractive library of Alexandria, which consisted of 200,000 volumes. 200,000 volumes. Now, you know that man cannot write 200,000 volumes. 200,000 volumes. There's no way. This is where Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, this is the whole gig up right here. This is where they took your stuff and put their face on it. Just as the Jews did with religion. They did it with world power and domination. Remember, he who rules writes history. That doesn't mean that it is a correct history. They can't give you a correct history or educate you with the correct history if they are to overrule you. Okay? Am I making any sense here? I'm just saying. Okay? By Ptolemy Philadelphus, with other attractive features, which was another Ptolemy after Ptolemy Soter. Okay, there were actually three of them. The third grandson, the grandson, which Ptolemy III of Soter. Yeah, you have to do history, because I get off into this and I won't finish this book. Okay, I get off to something else, but that's another history lesson that we'll get off into. Okay, we're gonna stick to the book. By Ptolemy, Philadelphia's, with other attractive features already pointed out, furnished great facilities as well as increased temptations to religious propagandists to absorb new theories, and make new creeds out of the vast medley of religious doctrines and speculative dogmas preached and propagated in the royal city by the disciples and representative of nearly every religious system then in existence, brought together by the attractions above specified. Hence, every consideration would lead us to conclude, taking in connection with the above facts stated, that the well-known borrowing proclivity and imitative propensity of the Jews, that they would not and could not withstand the overweening and overpowering temptation to make another radical change in their religion by a new draught on the boundless reservoir of speculative ideas, religion tenets, and specious theories then glowing in the popular schools of Alexandria. All the facts above enumerated would impel us to the conclusion that the Jews would, and every page of history touching the matter proves they did, make important changes in their religion by this contact with the Oriental systems, as they had repeatedly done before. That which they had repeatedly done before. Some of this proof we will here present to show how they originated Christianity. the schools of Alexandria, says Mr. Enfield, a Christian writer, by pretending to teach sublime doctrines concerning God and divine things, entice men of different countries and religions, and among the rest of the Jews, to study its mysteries and incorporated them with their own. Okay? The Jewish faith mixed with the Pythagorean and afterward with the Egyptian Oriental theology. That is, they became Essenes in the Grecian school of Pythagoras. Whew. I'm going to say that again. They became Essenes in the Grecian school of Pythagoras, who taught the doctrines of that religious order, then Buddhists in the Egyptian schools of Alexandria, and finally, with Christ as their leader, who taught the doctrines of both schools. They being essentially alike, they assumed the name of Christian in honor of him, and thus in Christianity from the Essene Buddhism. Bears, in his History of Jews, sustains the above statement by the declaration that the Essenian Jews fled, the Essenian Jews fled to Egypt at the time of the Babylonian captivity and therefore became acquainted with the Pythagorean philosophy and engrafted it upon the religion of Moses, which would make them Essenian Buddhists. For Cunningham assures us that the doctrine of Pythagoras were intensely Buddhist. What do you have to say about that? Yeah, we're blowing wig backs. Just in one book, we got many books, but just in this one book, I have blown wigs back. Yeah, thank you, Mo. Take that to your rabbi. Take that to your Jesus preacher. Take that to your imam. That's right, and I dare anybody who challenges me and say that Islam did not come from Christianity. I'll slap you in the head so hard, it won't spin, it'll just crack. Okay, back to this book here, okay? We will conclude a few more historical testimonies relative to the entire change of the Jewish faith while at Alexandria, as well as on other occasions, to show how easy and natural it was for that portion of the Jews who afterward became the followers of Christianity to slide it into and adopt Essenian Buddhism, whose doctrines they took to constitute the Christian religion. Mr. Gibbon declares that theological opinions of the Jews underwent great changes by their contact with the various foreigners they found in Alexandria. Mr. Tyler, likewise, in his Universal History, assures us that the Jewish religion became totally changed by the intermixture of heathen doctrines. Now, these are scholars, Jewish scholars, Christian scholars, that's telling you this. Just not Mo. I'm giving you the names. I'm giving you the books. Just go do you some research and stop being stupid. Okay? Mr. Tyler, likewise, in his Universal History, assures us that the Jewish religion became totally changed by the intermixture of heathen religions and doctrines. Dr. Campbell also testifies that their views came pretty much to coincide with those of the pagans. See his dissertation, volume 6. And the author, see his dissertation, number 6. You have to get the book in order to see the dissertation or read the book, his Universal History. And that is by who? Mr. Tytler, Tytler, okay? And the author of the expositor, expositor. Sometimes, I get tongue twisted, and so will you. And so will you if you run across some of these words. Okay, the expositor, expositor, for 1854 complains that the pagan theology stole upon them from every quarter and mingled in all of the views of then known tribes, so that by the year 150 BC, it had wrought visible changes in their notions and habits of thought. Here we have the proof that the whole Jewish religion underwent a change in Alexandria. And if you, once again, for those who do not know where Alexandria is, it is in Kemet, aka now Egypt. And Egypt is a Greece word, okay? Now most certainly, a nation or sect professing a religion so easily changed and possessing a character so fickle and so irresistible as to yield on every slight occasion and embrace every opportunity to imbibe new religious ideas and doctrines would easily, if not naturally, slide into the adoption of the religious systems then promulgated in Alexandria under the name of Buddhism and afterward remodeled or transferred and called Christianity. The Jews of the Essenian order, as we have in part shown in a previous chapter, set forth in their creed all the leading doctrines now compromised in Christian religions hundreds of years before the advent of Christ, not accepting the doctrine of the divine incarnation and its adjuncts as these concomitants of the present popular faith, we would now prove were not unknown to the Jewish theology, but constituted a part of the religions of some of the principal Jewish sects. The standard Christian author, Mr. Millman, in his History of Christianity, tells us that the doctrine of the incarnation, God manifested to flesh, was a doctrine from the Ganges and even the shores of the Yellow Sea to the Ilicis. It was a fundamental principle of the Indian Buddhist religion and philosophy. It was the basis of Zoroastrianism. It was pure Platonism. It was Platonic Judaism in the Alexandrian school. Here it is positively declared by a popular Christian writer whose work is a part of nearly every popular library of Christendom as a standard authority that the appearance of God amongst men in human form by human birth was a doctrine of Jewish religion and some of its branches, especially in the Essene branch, further proof that Christianity originated nothing and gave utterance to no new doctrine or precepts and performed no new miracles. Where then is the claim for its originality? On what ground is it predicated? Please answer us, good Christian brother. It is a question of no importance if it could be settled whether Christianity is a direct outgrowth from one of the newfangled sects of Judaism, or whether it derived a portion of its doctrine from this source and the balance from the ascetic Buddhism. Yet we regard it as an incontrovertible position that it all grew out of Buddhism originally, either directly or indirectly. Christ may have received his doctrine second-handed, all or a portion from the Essene Jews, for that sect held all the leading doctrines of Buddhism, as we have shown in previous chapter, which now goes under the names under the religion of Jesus Christ. Or we may indulge the unreasonable hypotheses that the founders of Christianity, who republished the doctrines of Buddhism and adopted them as their own, received them all direct from the disciples of that religious order, for they were everywhere, as one writer, Mr. Taylor, declares, speaking of their extensive travels to propagate their own doctrine through the world, as it was about that period. And Mr. Goodrich informs us that they sent out 900 missionaries who made 6 million of converts, a small fraction of their present number, 380 million, as even given by some of their, it was at that numbers at that time, which he wrote the book. That number has increased, of course. And 1/3 more than an entire census of Christendom, and 6 times the number of believers in Christian religion, if we omit Greeks and Catholics. It is, as a writer remarks, the oldest and most widely spread religion in the world, and whatever hypotheses may be adduced to account for the fact Christianity is now all Buddhism. Damn. So now you're a Jew, you're a Hindu, you're Buddhist, you're Muslim, and you're Christian. Damn. I'm just saying. It is impossible with the historical darkness which at present environs and beclouds our pathway to determine at what point or in what manner Christ became an Essene, whether he was born of Essenian parents or became a convert to the faith, because the whole period of his life, with the exception of about 3 years, is a total blank in history. There is but one incident related to his movement by his Bible biographers prior to his 27th year, leaving more than a quarter of a century of his probably active life unreported, a period that may have been witnessed several important changes in his religion. There's a book entitled The Lost Years of Jesus Christ. No, The Lost Books of Jesus Christ as well. You all need to check those books out. There's some more books we'll be getting to later on down the line. Okay, we got books. Okay, we have not even his ancestry reported in his scriptural biography in either parental line, unless we assume Joseph to have been his father. The parental lineage of his mother is entirely omitted. Had we his line of ancestry, or we could trace him back to his national or family origin, we doubt not, but we should there find a clue to the origin of his religion. We should find his ancestors were Essenian Jews, nor can we fix the date when the Essenian Buddhism among the Jews received the name Christianity for a similar reason. There is a link, a chain of events of 400 years left out of the Bible between Judaism and Christianity. Did you hear me? Thus, lacking 400 years of connecting the two religions together, or of showing how the latter grew out of the former. Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament, antedates the first events of the Christian history 4 centuries or 12 generations, thus leaving a wide and dark gap between them. And besides, we cannot find the name of Christ or Christianity mentioned in any of the contemporary histories of that era till 104 years after the time fixed for Christ's birth by Christendom. Tacitus, being the first writer who names either, and this was at that date. These facts disclose the whole secret with respect to the mystery and darkness thrown around the origin of the Christian religion, and how, the when, and the where of its origins. That chapter of Christian history is left out of record. The Bible account itself is but fragmentary, as it leaves 9/10 of Christ's history a blank. 9/10 of it blank. 27 years out of 30, and omits all mention of his ancestors beyond his grandmother, and leaves even the time of his birth a blank. The researchers of the learned, says Mr. Moshin, a standard Christian author, though long and ably conducted, have been unable to fix the time of Christ's birth with certainty. Wonderful admissions truly, as it is an evidence that nothing else can be fixed with certainty with respect to the history of the man Christ Jesus, only that his doctrines and precepts were all borrowed, perhaps during the 27 dark and mystery years of his life, if not in essence seen by birth. Bang! Going ham on you guys, okay? There is no escaping the conclusion that Christianity is a borrowed system, an outgrowth and remodeling of Buddhism with a change of name only. 1,000 facts of history prove and proclaim it, and the verdict of posterity will be unanimous in affirming it. Yeah, man, it's going down. It's going down. From the almost endless change of analogies exhibiting a striking and resemblance even in their minute details of Christianity and Buddhism, we are compelled to conclude that one furnished the materials for the other, that one is the offspring, the legitimate child of the other, and as it is settled historically, the fact that Buddhism is much the older system, there is hence no difficulty in determining which is the parent and which is the child. In the Hindu story of the creation of the human race, we find that Ademo and Heva, given as the names of the first man and woman answering to our Adam and Eve, and our Shem, Ham, and Japheth are traceable to Sherma, Hama, and Japhethia, Japhetta, Japhetta, J-A, J-I-A-P-H-E-T-A, Japhetta. The difference in the mode of the spelling is probably owing to the differences in the languages. And under the new era, we have Christ Jesus answering to their Krishna Zeus, as some writers give the name of the eighth avatar, and for Mia, a godmother, we have Mary, and other similar analogies might be pointed out, besides the long string of strikingly similar events previously presented in the history of the two saviors, Christ and Krishna, mounting to hundreds. And I gave you 346 of those, okay? Such an almost countless list of similar and nearly identical incidents, bids, defiance, and absolutely sets at naught all attempts to account for it as a mere fortuitous fortuitous accident. Fortuitos. There is no other explanation possible but that the Christianity is a revamp or reestablishment of Buddhism. Here let it be noted that Christianity was not the only religion which was rehabilitated in the Alexandrian schools. On the contrary, all the popular Oriental system then inactive being had long previously passed through the same representative theological schools and creed-making institutions of that royal and commercial city. All were remodeled in the theological workshops, a fact historical incidents being found in the latter sacred books of each. And besides, Sir William Jones says the disciples of these various systems of religion had intercourse with each other long before the time of Christ, which was necessarily bring about a uniformity in the doctrines and general character of each system. The disciples of all religion systems cited their initiatory, initiatory. I know the word. I just get tongue twisted. And like I said, so would you. In their initiatory miracles as a proof of being the familiar terms with God Almighty. They all healed the sick, all restored the deaf, the dumb, and the blind, and all cast out devils. Legendary marvels running parallel lines because all were recast in the same creed mode in Alexandria. A coincidence is thus beautifully explained, which would otherwise be hard to account for. Mr. Gibbons said it was the school of Alexandria that the Christian's theology appears to have assumed a regular and scientific form. Pregnant with meaning is the text. It was in the city of Antioch that disciples were first called Christians, and that, my friend, is in the book of Acts. Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, that's in the book of Acts, chapter 11, verse 36. Here is a conclusive proof that disciples of the Christian faith were not always known by the same name and were not at first called Christians, then what they were called during the earlier years of their history. Essenes. Here's a great and important query, and none involving or Buddhist, and one involving a momentous problem. Couple the two facts together, that the disciples was first known as Christians at Antioch, and that the Essenian order or believers expired and went out of history about that period. And the question is at once and forever satisfactorily settled. It was not an infrequent act on making important changes in a religion and adopting some new items of faith to change the title of the system and give it a new name. After Alexander Campbell had made some modification in his previous religious faith and started a new church, his followers were probably called Campbellites. Elias Hicks engrafted some reform ideas into the Quaker faith and instituted a new society of that order. Wow, did y'all hear that? Elias Hicks, Elias Hicks, the founder of the Quakers. Did y'all know who the founder of the Quaker was? If you don't, now you do. His name is Elias Hicks, and grafted some reform ideas into the Quaker faith and instituted a new society of that order. Okay? Hence and henceforth, his disciples were known as Hicksites. In like manner, Jesus Christ, having made some innovations in his inherited Jewish faith, which was of the Essene stamp, or the Essenes, but it's Essenes, okay, by engrafting more of the Buddhist doctrine into it. His followers were henceforth called Christians. How complete the analogy! Here let it be borne in mind and powerfully confirmatory of this conclusion, that the first Christians were, as history affirms, merely reformatory Jews. The 12 chosen were all Jews, probably of the Essene order, according to the Reverend Mr. Predox, which sounds like a French name, Jewish historian though. The Jews of this order were first called Israelites, in common with the other tribes, then Chassidim, and thirdly the Essenes. So we go back further than the Essenes to Chassidim. Okay, worth note taking. Okay, and that's Chassidim. Okay, and finally here at the Essenian Jews, and here at the Essenian Jesus Christ, with some new radical ideas proclaimed, ye have heard it, hath it been said, them of old time, thus and so, but I say unto you differently. The title was again changed, and they adopted or received the name of Christians. The Essenes or the Essenians, going out of the history of that very day Christians first appear in history. But this and that together, if you put this and that together, if you put this and that together, and the chain is welded. Thus, we can easily trace the origin of Christianity as we can trace the origin of a root running beneath the soil in the direction of a certain tree. History then proclaims that to be honest, pious, deeply devout, self-denying, yet ignorant, slothful, and filthy Buddhist Essenes may be awarded the honor or dishonor of giving birth to that system of religion now known as Christianity. Crazy. We got like 3 more pages. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 more pages, you all, and we'll be in chapter 33, which we will be going to sometime in the afternoon, okay? But Krishna as a god, additional facts. The following additional facts relative to the history, character, life, and teachings of Zeus Krishna or Jesus Krishna, as styled by one writer, are drawn mostly from the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, the Bible of India. His Virgin Mother, her character, the Holy Book declares that through her the designs of God were accomplished. She was pure and chaste. No animal food ever touched her lips. Honey and milk were her sustenance. Her time was spent in solitude, lost in the contemplation of God, who showered upon her innumerable blessings. She looked upon death as the birth to a new and better life. When she traveled, a column of fire in heaven went before her to guide her. One evening, as she was praying, she heard celestial music and fell into a profound ecstasy, a trance, hypnotized, and being overshadowed by the Spirit of God, she perceived the God Krishna. That's in the Bhagavad, okay? The Gita. Krishna, his life and mission. The San Antonio God was about 16 when he commenced active life. Like Christ, he chose 12 disciples to aid him in propagating his doctrines. He spent his time working miracles, resuscitating the dead, healing lepers, restoring the deaf and blind, defending the weak against the strong, and the oppressed against the oppressor, and in proclaiming his divine mission to redeem man for his original sin and banish evil and restore the reign of good. It is declared that he came to teach peace, charity, love to man, self-respect, the practice of good for its own sake, and faith in the inexhaustible goodness of the Creator, also to preach the immortality of the soul, the doctrine of the future rewards and punishments, and to vanquish the prince of darkness, Rakshas, the devil. It is further declared that Brahma sent his own son Krishna upon the earth to die for the salvation of man. His lofty precepts and the purity of his life spread his fame throughout all India, and finally won for him more than 3 millions of followers. He inculcated the sublimest doctrines and the purest morals and the grand principles of charity and self-denial. He forbade revenge and commanded to return good for evil and console the feeble and the unhappy. He lived poor and loved poor. He lived chaste and enjoined the chastity, problems that most lawfully and morals the most pure and sublime, and the future destiny of man were things which engaged by his most profound attention. Krishna, we would venture to say, says the Bible in India, was the greatest of philosophers, not only of India, but of the entire world. He was the grandest moral figure of ancient times. Krishna was a moralist and a philosopher. We should admire his moral lesson, so sublime and so pure. He was recognized as a divine word. He received the title of Jesus, which means pure as seen. Krishna signifies the promise of God, the Messiah. When he preached, he often spoke from a mount. He spake in parables. Parables play a great part in the familiar instructions of this Hindu redeemer. He relates a very interesting parable of a fisherman who was much persecuted by his neighbors, but when a long time of a severe famine, when the people were suffering and dying for want of food, being so noble as to return good for evil, he carried food to these same persecuting enemies and thus saved them from starvation. Therefore said he, do good to all, both the evil and the good, even your enemies. His addresses to the people were simple, but to his disciples they were elevated and philosophical. Such was the wisdom of his sermons and his parable that the people crowded around him, eager to behold and hear him, saying, "This is indeed the Redeemer promised to our fathers." Great multitudes follow him, exclaiming, "This is he who resuscitates the dead and heals the lame and the deaf and the blind." On one occasion, as he entered Madura, as Christ once entered Jerusalem, the people came out in flocks to meet him and strewed branches in his way. On another occasion, two women approached him, anointed him with oil, and worshipped him. When the people murmured at this waste, he replied, "Better is a little given with an humble heart than much given with ostentation." Such was his essence of decorum that he admonished some girls he once observed playing in a state of nudity on the bank of a river after bathing. They replied, asked for forgiveness and reformed. The followers of Krishna practiced all the virtues and observed a complete abnegation of self-denial and lived poor, hoping for a reward in the future life. They occupied all their time in the service of their divine master. Pure and majestic was their worship. Krishna had a favorite disciple, Adjurna. Krishna had a favorite disciple, Adjurna, Adjaurna, who sustained him in the relation of John to Christ, while Angada acted the part of Judas by following him to the Ganges and betraying him. His last hours, when Krishna knew his hour had come for bidding his disciples to follow him, he repaired to the bank of the river Ganges, and having performed 3 ablutions, he knelt down and looking up to heaven, he prayed to Brahma. While nailed to the cross, the tree on which he was suspended became suddenly covered with great red flowers, which diffused their fragrance all around. And it is said he often appeared to his disciples after death in all his divine majesty. The second advent of Krishna. There is not a Hindu or Brahmin who does not look upon the second coming of Krishna as an established article of faith. The holy Bibles, the Vedas or the Gita, prophesy of him thus: he shall come crowned with lights, he shall come, and the heavens and earth shall be joyous. The stars shall pale before his splendor. The earth would be too small to contain him, for he is infinite, he is mighty, he is wisdom, he is beauty, he is all and in all men, all animated beings, beasts, birds, trees, and plants will chant his praises. He will regenerate all bodies and purify all souls. He will be as sweet as honey and ambrosia, and as pure as a lamb without spot, or as the setting of the sun. It will be a day of joy and exaltation when this God shall manifest his power and glory and reconcile the world unto himself. Such are a few of prophetic utterances of his devout and prayerful disciples. We find, says the writer, in all his theogonies of different countries, we hope that the advent of a God, either his first or second coming, a hope which sprang from a sense of their own imperfections and suffering, which naturally induced them to look for a divine Redeemer. Precepts of Krishna. Numerous are the numerous are the prescriptive admonitions found in the holy book which set forth the religion of this heathen demigod, the so-called Christian professors. They appertain to all of the duties of life, but are too numerous to be quoted here. Those appertaining to the woman enjoying the most sacred regard for her rights, such as the woman should be protected with tenderness and shielded with fostering solitude. There is no crime more odious than to persecute woman or take advantage of their weakness. Degrade woman and you degrade man. Exactly. because woman is man's first teacher. Isn't that right, Mother Nature? Not the Trinity, not the Father, but Mother Nature. I'm just saying. For other similar precepts, see chapter 32. And, and we are in chapter 32. Okay? The injunctions to read their Holy Bible, the Vedas, are quite numerous, such as let him study the Holy Scriptures unceasingly, pray night and morning, and read the Holy Scriptures in the attitude of devotion. And many of them read it through upon their knees. We have not space for a further exposition of the subject here, but it will be found more fully set forth in the pamphlet Christ and Krishna Compare, which will perhaps become an appendix to this work. It may be objected there are precepts and stories to be found in the religion of this Hindu god Krishna, which reflect but little credit or honor upon that religion. This is true, and similar reflections would materially damage the religion of Christianity also. The story of Christ beating and maltreating the money changers in the temple, his cursing an innocent, unoffending, and unconscious fig tree, and his indulgence in profane swearing at his enemies. O ye fools and blind, ye generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? Does not reflect any credit upon his religion, viewed as a system. Defects then may be found in both systems. In viewing the analogies of the two religions, it should be noted that the Hindu claim, with a forcible show of facts and logic, that the religion of Christianity grew out of theirs. It has not been long since a learned Hindu maintained this position in a public debate with a missionary. If all these facts affect nothing in the way of inducing the Christian clergy to confess the falsity of their position in claiming their religion to be a direct emanation from God, it would be a sad commentary upon their intelligence or their honesty. 100. These historical facts, with those set forth in the preceding chapters, prove that the religion called Christianity, instead of being a Christian's claim, the product of divine mind, is a product of heathen minds, a spontaneous outgrowth of the moral and religious elements of the human mind, and therefore, for God to have revealed it over again to the founders of Christianity would have been superfluous and a proof of his ignorance of history. Note, the author deems it proper to state here, with respect to the comparison between Christ and Krishna, that some of the doctrines which he has selected as constituting a part of the religion of the Hindu Savior are not found in the reported teachings of that defied moralist, but as they appear to breathe forth the same spirit, it is presumed he would have endorsed them had they come under his notice. As Christians assume the liberty to arrange the doctrines of Paul and Peter under the head of Christianity because it claimed to be in consonance with the religion of Christ, though not all taught by him, the author, in like manner, he assumed that some doctrines taught by other systems and religious teachers of India accord with those taught by Krishna, and hence has arranged with them this. The author's purpose is to set forth the doctrines of any sect, any system, or any religious system. Let me go over that again. The author's purpose is not to set forth the doctrines of any sect. Is not to set forth any doctrines of any sect, any system, or any religious teacher, but to show that all doctrines of Christianity are traceable to ancient India. Okay? No disrespect. We're just educating you, okay? Many people Once again, the believers don't like the thinkers. I'm just saying. It's just like your employer. Your employer wants you to do what they ask you to do and not what you want to do. If you choose to do what you want to do and use your mind to make things a little bit easier, you may be brought up on a reprimand. Why? Because you outthought the boss and your thinking was more effective than his thinking in producing that which you are producing at work. The same is with the believers and the thinkers. 100. I've seen families destroyed because of this. Some of my relatives don't even deal with me right now. Why? Because I'm on a higher frequency and they don't ever talk to me about this. They hate talking to me about this. In fact, about it, many would run away or they would say, let's go to another topic. Why should we go to another topic? It's just religious dogma, but they don't understand that. They take it for whole face value. Just like when they say Jonah got swallowed up by a whale. Now, you can't tell them that's allegorical. They're going to tell you what Reverend Porkchop said versus having their own fundamental way of thinking. Because when you knock on that door of order, because religion is an order, you will get an answer, and that answer would be to submit to that order and don't question that which we teach you. Just obey and believe. I'm just saying. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. We got a couple of more paragraphs to note here. As Christians assume the liberty to arrange the doctrines of Paul and Peter under the head of Christianity because they claim to be in carnal sense with the religion of Christ, though not all taught by him. In Arthur, in like manner, he assumed that some doctrines taught by other systems and religion teachers of India accord with those taught by Krishna, and hence has arranged them with his. The author's purpose is not to set forth the doctrines of any sect, any system, or any religious teacher, but to show that all the doctrines of Christianity are traceable to ancient India. Yes, I had to go over that again. But whether taught by this sect or that sect, it is foreign to our purpose to inquire, and hence, for convenience, he has arranged them all into one system and designated them Christianity. Borrowing from a new term, there can be no more impropriety, he presumes, in arranging the doctrines of the various conflicting sects of India into one system, including Brahmanism and Buddhism, than to arrange, as Christians do, the doctrines taught by the antagonist system of the Catholicism, Protestantism, and their 600 conflicting sects under the head of Christianity. Hence, Christians, of course, would not fault the arrangement. The classification above alluded to compromise, in part, the religion of many of the Hindu sects, but does not set forth all their doctrine, only those analogous to Christianity. Krishna was a Vishnuite and not a Brahmin. I'm going to say that again. Krishna was a Vishnuite and not a Brahmin, and some writers assume he and Christ were both reformers and departed from the ancient faith. Vishnuism appears to have finally centered in Buddhism. And that, my friends, is the end of the chapter 32. There was a lot of food in there. I really hope that you took notes. Go do some research, whatever you do. But I did not fail in my duty in giving you all some food for thought. My hands are clean. But remember, you all, knowledge is power. It is your third eye that makes you shine like jewelry. And if you haven't pressed that subscribe button already, do so now. Hit that like button, hit that share button, hit the notification bell, and the subscribe button so that you can get all of the new videos that I upload here on YouTube. And once again, I want to reiterate on the fact that if you want to go to the beginning, chapter 1 of this book entitled, this audio entitled, this live entitled, The World 16 Crucified Saviors by Kersey Graves, you have to go to my uploads and get the first 9 videos that I upload, which will give you images, portraits, and voiceovers under all of that good stuff for 9 videos. Videos 10 to the present are lives, just as the rest of the book will be lives. It would have taken me months and months to have come up with all of those pictures and images as I explain these chapters to you. I'll just give it to you live. You can go research it, find the images. I find that to save time. I find that to save frustration. And I find that it will give you an opportunity to do homework versus me doing all the homework and not getting the views, okay? But if this message is for you, it is for you. And if it's not for you, I guarantee you, you would have learned something by watching these videos and listening and taking notes as I go through the material. Thanks for viewing, you all. And by all means, don't ever give up on your dreams. We'll be back sometime this Wednesday afternoon, dropping another live, starting with chapter 33. It has been an amazing hour and 42 minutes, you all. But we have got through chapter 32. It has taken 3 hours and 42 minutes, meaning that it took 3 videos to go through chapter 32. That was pretty lengthy. But we loved it, had fun, and I hope you got something out of it. And by all means, I repeat it again, never give up on your dreams. Thanks for viewing, you all, and peace out.